Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta-vrinda 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 Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda 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 Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta-vrinda 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda 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 Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta-vrinda 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 Nityananda Rama Ki Om Jnanatamrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sta Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Sta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavani Ishvare Vishubhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Adi Priye Vancha Kapatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ajanulambita Bhujao Kanakavadhatao Sankirtanai Kapitarao Kamalaya Takshao Vishvambara Dvijavara Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaru Karuna Avataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Saudadao Gaudadayo Pushpavantao Chitra Shandao Tamonadao Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanachamini Prabhupada Valavaya Srigasira Nudaya Gyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtit Patita Manam Gyana Guru Jaya Chitarini Chakshishima Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shandivadi Pastadishtadini. So Hare Krishna, the auspicious appearance of Sri Nityananda Ram Prabhu Ki. And so, remembering past Nityananda Trayodasies, remember that time, Nadia, that the crazy guy attacked us on Nityananda Trayodasi? Yeah.
Which time? Here?
Yeah. Remember we were out here and the crazy guy came in screaming about Gurudev?
Oh, yeah. That was Nityananda.
Yeah.
He was really searching for the
So, yeah, it's a good one. That was my first Nityananda Trayodasi here in Tucson. So I always remember that. Dero's famous line. So, anyhow, I was thinking, we feel unworthy. Last week was Advaita Acharya's appearance day. It just so happened to be a Friday. It's nothing interesting. I just give class on Friday, so it just happened to be that both Nityananda Trayodasi and Advaita Acharya's appearance day were on Friday. So I was speaking, but I feel very unqualified to speak about Lord Nityananda, of course. But in one sense, I think that all devotees are qualified to speak of the Lord Nityananda because we've all experienced Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, and that's a genuine experience. In the song Nitai Padakamala, one of the verses is that the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are not an illusion. They are real, and the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu is real. So, before we get into the Leelas and the beautiful pastimes of Lord Nityananda, which are unlimited, and so I'm only going to describe briefly what I can and what resonates with me. And we'll speak about the Tattva, like we spoke of Advaita Acharya, we spoke about the Tattva, but it's less complex because we're missing that Shiva element. But Lord Nityananda Tattva is important to understand. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he makes great effort to establish Krishna as the absolute truth. And it's quite amazing how Krishnadas Kaviraj firmly establishes Krishna as the absolute truth. So those who don't read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, like Bhadranarayan Maharaj, he says all the time, he says, you're missing out big time. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the life and blood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. In fact, scholars have done research, and there's one scholarly study, and actually this devotee Deva Vrata Prabhu was speaking to me about this once, that there were some religious scholars trying to understand what is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And the conclusion they actually came to was that Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the religion, or the path of, it's not a religion, of course, but it is the spiritual practice of those who read and follow the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there's so much variety. We see that actually. We have our ISKCON, which is kind of the flagship of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But when Lord Chaitanya departed, there were two groups of his devotees. One group was the group that was in Vrindavan, which is consisting of the 6 Goswamis, and they had a particular mood, and they compiled many of the teachings and books of that very famous and wonderful tradition, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But simultaneously, Nityananda Prabhu and many of Lord Chaitanya's associates were in Puri and were also present in West Bengal and in Mayapur Dham, Navadvip Dham, throughout West Bengal. And so there were differences in the way they conducted themselves. And so until the Chaitanya Charitamrita came about, they were so different that it was almost unrecognizable, but they all agreed that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the text which brought them together. And so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, under the instruction of Lord Nityananda, he compiled the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in that way brought all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas together. And so he was compiling that in Vrindavan, and it was copied and, copied very meticulously and given to the devotees in West Bengal, and it became the authoritative philosophical treatise on which the Gaudiya Vaishnavas conduct their worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is by far and undeniably the most powerful presentation of theology, I would say, ever written. Of course, you have the Sandarbhas by Jiva Goswami, but still, in one sense, those are coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his inspiration. And so the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the theological, topmost theological text, which I think anybody can find. I mean, not to compare or to put any other practice down, but we have the details that are so unbelievable in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We hear of, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. This is the theology. In 6 days, God created the world. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you hear about God's energies, all of God's energies, God's pastimes, God's activities. What is God doing with his consorts in the spiritual world? And detailed information about how these tattvas expand. And so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami makes great effort in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita to establish that Krishna is the absolute truth, beyond Narayan, beyond Vishnu, beyond every other incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Ete chamsha kalu pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is Bhagavan, Swayam Bhagavan. He's the supreme original personality of Godhead, which is a very significant point. And in establishing Krishna as the original personality of Godhead, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami then establishes undeniably that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. So, thus establishing that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from that supreme personality of Godhead, Krishnadas Kaviraj begins to glorify Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu is Balaram Ji. He is non-different from Lord Haladhar Balaram, the primary expansion of Krishna. So these two brothers, Krishna and Balaram, have again appeared on the horizon of Gauda, like the sun and the moon, to give mercy to all. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahadadao Gaudadao Pushpavantao Chitra Shandao Tamonudao. Nityananda Prabhu and Lord and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are giving mercy to all. And they are the very same two brothers, Krishna and Balaram. So Krishna is the supreme and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the supreme. He's not an avatar. He's actually the avatari. He is Krishna himself in a golden form. He's not an avatar of Krishna. He's not an expansion of Krishna. He is Krishna himself, with all the potencies therein of the Supreme Person Krishna from Vrindavan. And Nityananda Prabhu is that very same Lord Balaram. So we should understand what is Balaram, what is this expansion. So Krishna expands himself, his very first and primary expansion, the Balaramji. And Balaram is, for all intents and purposes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with all powers therein. The difference is that Lord Balaram manifests the mood of servitor. Lord Balaram is the servitor of the Supreme Person Krishna. And all other forms, Krishnadas Kaviraj establishes this fact, that all other forms of the Lord, including that of Vishnu, Narayan, all other forms of the Lord are actually servants of Krishna. They all worship Krishna. It's kind of amazing to understand, but every single form of the Lord is actually worshiping Krishna. But Krishna is the supreme absolute Eka Ishvara Krishna, supreme absolute person. And so Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Balaram, they are the expansion in which all other expansions of the Lord are coming. And from them, all the other forms of the Lord engage in the worship of the Supreme Person, the Supreme Purusha, Krishna. And so Lord Balaramji, he is God himself, but he's always thinking of how to serve Krishna. And in this way, he is considered Adi Guru. Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Balaramji, is our Adi Guru, the original spiritual master, because he is training the entire universe in the process of worshiping and loving Krishna. So in this way, Lord Balaram, he expands himself once again into the next Chaturvyuha in Dwarka. And then we hear about Sankarshan. And Sankarshan, this eternal form of the Lord, the beautiful white color. From him, all the other forms are expanding, including Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Kshorodakshai Vishnu. And from him, the world is created. And also within our heart, Lord Balaram is there because the Supersoul is an expansion of Sankarshan, whom is Lord Balaram, Lord Nityananda. So Lord Nityananda is the ever merciful personality of Godhead who travels with us through many, many lifetimes, through this material world, present with us, just wishing that we'll come back to Krishna. Because Lord Nityananda, Lord Balaram's eternal service is to help those conditioned souls come back to Krishna. So in this way, Nityananda Prabhu is the original spiritual master of the universe and is always in pure blissful Krishna consciousness. So point should be made, because it's made by all our acharyas, that Gaur Nitai are always worshipped together. They are one personality, and they are worshipped together. And so I will give a brief description of the beautiful form of Nityananda Prabhu in a second from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But there's one significant pastime of the CC in which the glories of Lord Nityananda are being described. And the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he explains one pastime, how he was, of course, a Vaishnava in a Vaishnava family, and his brother was a very significant devotee of Lord Chaitanya. He was engaged in worshiping Lord Chaitanya, so to speak. But once the great associate of Nityananda Prabhu, Minaketa Ramdas, appeared and came into the home of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And Minaketa Ramdas, he is one of Lord Nityananda's primary associates, and he was in the mood of Nityananda Prabhu and the cowherd boys. So he was dressed very opulently with turbans, and he had a stick, and he was very, very powerful personality. And so when Minaketa Ramdas came in, he was not honored because the brother of Krishnadas Kaviraj was worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and thought, I don't need to worship this Minaketa Ramdas. And of course, we learned just from deity worship that if one is, Prabhupada said many times, if one's doing artik and a guest comes, one should stop the artik and greet the guest. So people don't realize, some people are very fanatical in so many ways, but they forget that the main purpose of the preaching and the deities, the main purpose of the temple and the deities is to preach, which is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So the point is, he was worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he did not honor Minaketa Ramdas. And Minaketa Ramdas said, he is the second Ramaharshan Sutta. He's like Ramaharshan Sutta. And so then Minaketa Ramdas broke his flute and he cursed the brother of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was trying to, tell him, you have to honor Nityananda Prabhu with Lord Chaitanya. You can't, anybody who says they're a devotee of Nityananda but is not a devotee of Lord Chaitanya is not a devotee of Nityananda. Anybody who says they're a devotee of Chaitanya but is not a devotee of Nityananda is not a devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So really, we are worshippers of Gaur Nitai. Of course, one can say there are deities of just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes, that's true, but still we worship Nityananda. And also, especially in Mayapur, there's many, many deities of Gaur Gadadhar. Gaur and Gadadhar together. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's deities, which are still there in Gorjum Dweep, are Gaur Gadadhar deities. Also in the Srivas Angam, there's beautiful Gaur Gadadhar deities. So Nityananda Prabhu was not honored by the brothers. So Minaketa Ramdas became very angry and left. This was a big offense because they've offended an associate of Sri Chaitanya, of Nityananda Prabhu. So after that happened, of course, Krishnadas Kaviraj was lamenting some, But then he actually had a dream. He had a dream that night. And so there's some instructions. There's some instructions here. Knowing this, my brother had firm faith in Lord Chaitanya, but only a glimmer of faith in Sri Nityananda. Knowing this, Sri Ramdas felt unhappy in his mind. I then rebuked my brother. This is Krishnadas Kaviraj speaking to his brother. These two brothers, I told him, are like one body. They are identical manifestations. If you do not believe in Lord Nityananda, you will fall down. If you have faith in one but disrespect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. It would be better to be an atheist by slighting both brothers than a hypocrite by believing one and slighting the other. Thus Ramdas broke his flute in anger and went away. And at that time, my brother fell down. So this dishonoring of Lord Nityananda Prabhu caused this brother to fall down. I have thus described the power of the servants of Lord Nityananda. Now I shall describe another characteristic of his mercy. That night, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream because of my good quality and chastising my brother. So he chastised this personality for disrespecting the Lord, and Lord Nityananda appeared to him. So sometimes when devotees chastise, it can be that they're getting great mercy for that. And I've actually experienced that in my life where there was one devotee being very, very disrespectful, another devotee extremely disrespectful. I thought very deeply about it. I said, I'm going to chastise this devotee because it's unacceptable. And I was very heavy with this devotee. It was really, really bad. I was thinking I'm going to hell for sure. I told Krishna, I'm so offended that he treated this devotee that way that I'm going to go to hell for this because I'm going to tell him. And then, you know what? I told my spiritual master, he said, good. He deserved that. And I just felt, I really felt I got so much mercy from this. And I was there. Some people know. Some people I've heard were there. I was very heavy. But I really felt immense amount of mercy come down from this. And that devotee never did that again. So sometimes it's important to stand up and defend devotees. But everybody knows I was really depressed for like a week afterward because I felt I was going to go to hell. I was sure I was going to hell. The night Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream because of my good quality in chastising my brother. In the village of Jamatapura, which is near Naihati, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream. I fell at his lotus feet offering my obeisances, and he then placed his own lotus feet upon my head. Arise, get up, he told me again and again. Upon rising, I was greatly astonished to see his beauty. He had a glossy blackish complexion, and his tall, strong, heroic structure made him seem like Cupid himself. He had beautifully formed hands, arms, and legs, and eyes like lotus flowers. He wore silk cloth with a silk turban on his head. He wore golden earrings on his ears and golden armlets and bangles. He wore tinkling anklets on his feet and a garland of flowers around his neck. His body was anointed with sandalwood pulp, and he was nicely decorated with tilak. His movements surpassed those of a maddened elephant. His face was more beautiful than millions upon millions of moons, and his teeth were like pomegranate seeds because of his chewing betel. His body moved to and fro, right and left, and he was absorbed in ecstasy. He chanted, Krishna, Krishna, in a deep voice. His red stick moving in his hand, he seemed like a maddened lion. All around the four sides of his feet were bumblebees. His devotees dressed like cowherd boys surrounded his feet like so many bees and also chanted, Krishna, Krishna, absorbed in ecstatic love. Some of them played horns and flutes, and others danced and sang. Some of them offered betel nuts, and others waved chamar fans about him. Thus I saw the opulence in Lord Nityananda Swarup. His wonderful form, qualities, and pastimes are all transcendental. I was overwhelmed with transcendental ecstasy, not knowing anything else. Then Lord Nityananda smiled and spoke to me as follows. O my dear Krishnadas, do not be afraid. Go to Vrindavan, for there you will attain all things. So this is the beautiful initiation of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami when he saw Lord Nityananda in a dream. And that's just to me puts that beautiful image of Lord Nityananda with his beautiful earrings and beautiful turban, twirling a stick with many bumblebees surrounding his lotus feet and the beautiful flower garland. It's such an amazing description and the compassion of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So with that, we'll enter into the birth of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So Lord Nityananda Prabhu, of course, he appeared in Ekachakra Dham. And how many devotees have been to Ekachakra? You been to Ekachakra? Ekachakra is such an amazing experience. I had the opportunity to visit Ekachakra Dham with His Grace Padmanayan Prabhu, and I was with me, Bala Gopinath, and myself visited Ekachakra Dham with the Mayapur Institute, and it was a very intense yatra because we had to wake up at Mayapur early in the morning, drive 6 hours in an Indian bus to Ekachakra Dham, spend 6 hours in Ekachakra, and then go 6 hours back to Mayapur. And then I led Mangal Artik in Mayapur the next morning, so it was totally devastating. And I led the kirtan. They let me lead the whole yatra. I was leading kirtan, and so the next morning I was trying to sing Mangal Artik in Mayapur. And I'm like Samsara Dhama. It's really, really horrible, embarrassing. But what the heck? Krishna's, Lord Nityananda's mercy. So yes, Ekachakra is a very beautiful place, and for some reason, I encourage everybody to visit there. ISKCON is a very beautiful temple in Ekachakra. It's really gorgeous, and Ekachakra is still a village. It is not. Like even in Mayapur, there's so many people, and there's so much, enterprise in terms of trying to, market that Lord Chaitanya's birthplace. But Ekachakra is a little tiny village. It's really beautiful, and the holy places are just very pure and genuine. There's not trying to sell them, and so it's very nice to visit Ekachakra Dham. And so Lord Nityananda appeared in Ekachakra Dham to Harai Pandit and Sri Padmavati Devi. So, and of course, what can be said, Lord Nityananda Prabhu was the most beautiful child. It's described he was very intelligent, very smart, very conscious. But the primary, activity of Lord Nityananda Prabhu's childhood pastimes were that he was always absorbed in Krishna Leela and the Leelas of Krishna. Lord Nityananda Prabhu used to play and act out the Leelas, and the residents of Ekachakra were astonished. How is this young boy? How does he know so many details of the Mahabharata and of the Ramayana and of the Srimad Bhagavatam? He has so many detailed knowledge. And even from a little child, he would have his friends pretend to be a cart, and then he would kick the cart, and they would fall. But out of all these different Leelas Lord Nityananda Prabhu would act, he had one particular favorite, and he really enjoyed the activities of Lakshmanji. Lord Nityananda Prabhu was very much absorbed in the pastimes of Lakshman. And I always think how fortunate the children of Ekachakra, and these are Lord Nityananda Prabhu's friends, getting to play Krishna Leela with Lord Nityananda Prabhu. That's always a really amazing thing to think about. So Lord Nityananda Prabhu was very much absorbed in playing the role of Lakshman as a child. And so there's one famous story in which Lord Nityananda Prabhu and his friends, they were playing the Ramayana, and at one point Ravana said, I'm going to hit you with my very powerful weapon. And so then that little boy threw a lotus flower at Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu, when he was hit with that lotus flower, he passed out. And he was so absorbed in play that it appeared that Lord Nityananda Prabhu was dead. And so all the Harai Pandit and Padmavati, they were just weeping. All the children were freaking out. And they didn't know what to do. They had become so absorbed in playing that they had forgot it was a game in a sense. And then one of the boys remembered that, he needed to get the herb. So the boy who was acting as Hanuman went and grabbed some, clump of earth, which was supposed to be the Mandara mountain, and brought it to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu smelled it, and Lord Nityananda Prabhu came back to life. So in this way, Lord Nityananda Prabhu gave pleasure to all of the children and all of the residents of Ekachakra Dham. And if you go to Ekachakra Dham, which is named Ekachakra because when Krishna was going to attack Bhishma with the chakra, the conch blew, and Krishna was like, I don't need this anymore. So he flung that chariot wheel, and that chariot wheel flew all the way from Kurukshetra to West Bengal and landed in Ekachakra. And so in that way, it was named Ekachakra. That was a long, it's like 800 miles. It flew. So in Ekachakra, you can go to Lord Nityananda Prabhu's birthplace. And it's a very beautiful temple. It's almost like a church. It's very, very churchy temple when you go into the temple. And you can see of course, it's not the original house, but there's a place where his home was. And then there's a pond where Lord Nityananda Prabhu used to bathe. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu would play on one particular bakul tree. And that pastime is there in the Chaitanya Bhagavata. And you can go to that bakul tree that Lord Nityananda Prabhu played on. And it's very beautiful. And there's various other pastimes that take place in Ekachakra, including the Pandavas. They all stayed in Ekachakra. And there was one demon that was requiring a sacrifice every single day. And so then they actually sent Bhima out as the sacrifice. And then bad news for the demon. The demon was ripped apart by Bhima Dev. So you can go to that place where the Pandavas stayed. It's a very beautiful place. So at a certain point, the great and powerful sannyasi Lakshmipati Tirtha came to Ekachakra. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says Madhavendra Puri. But the Chaitanya Bhagavat and various other devotees say Lakshmipati Tirtha. So generally I hear Lakshmipati Tirtha. Lakshmipati Tirtha appeared at Ekachakra Dham. And Hadai Pandit, being a very, very proper Brahmana and understanding the etiquette, he invited Lakshmipati Tirtha into his home, gave him nice prasadam, worshipped him with all paraphernalias. And Hadai Pandit said, "My dear Lakshmipati Tirtha Maharaj, what can I do for you? Please let me serve you in any way I can." And so Lakshmipati Tirtha Swami said, "Well, there's not much that I need, but one thing I do need is I need a brahmachari assistant. And your son is so beautiful and strong and intelligent and proper. Therefore, give me your son so he can follow me on pilgrimage." And being a proper brahmana who had given his word, it's an important point that when these devotees give their word is their word. So when we take vows of initiation, we should also think like that. This is our word. That's it. No more sense gratification. Bas. Krishna Seva. So he had given the word, and so Hadai Pandit was heartbroken. Actually he almost left his body right there. He did leave his body from heartbreak. The Padmavati was weeping, and so they must though. So Lord Nityananda Prabhu left at the great distress of Hadai Pandit and Padmavati, and you can imagine having the most beautiful person. I always think about this sometimes when I think about, I've actually begin to cry almost in thinking about this kind of concept. Like take someone you love, like if you've ever been through a breakup or if you've ever lost a parent or something like that, when you lose someone like that, it's so painful. It's like heartbreak, and you think about, now amplify that to the unlimited degree, unlimited, exponent. Then that's Krishna or that's Lord Nityananda. And then the gopis or these, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, or in this case, Padmavati Devi and Hadai Pandit, now they're having to say goodbye to their son and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is in his most merciful and beautiful form. Can you imagine the suffering? We can't even imagine. So if you just sometimes meditate on that, it really can bring tears to your eyes. You think about times we've said goodbye to people we love, or when that relationship ends, it's so painful. So Hadai Pandit and Bhagavati Devi left their body. It was too much. So they couldn't stay in their bodies. So Lord Nityananda, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to go give mercy to the whole world, he began to go on pilgrimage, and he went to various places of pilgrimage. And that's a whole chapter in the Chaitanya Bhagavat you can study. There's certain highlights that I like. He one time came across some Buddhists, and he went into the Buddhist temple, and he was like, Haribol. He was trying to talk to him, and they were busy in their meditation. And so Lord Nityananda Prabhu just decided that, okay, I'm just going to kick you in the head. And he actually started kicking these Buddhists in the head. So Lord Nityananda Prabhu can do that. I don't recommend doing that. But he did. Now there was one Buddhist guy at the campus. We were doing Harinam, and this guy was sitting there meditating for a long time. He was looking deep, and I was like, I'm going to go give that guy a flower garland that we had brought with us. And I was thinking, he'll be interested in a book, but he was like, I'm a Buddhist. He was really just totally impersonal and not a very cool guy to talk to, actually. I was really let down because I thought this guy was going to be really going to get a book and become a devotee. And I was thinking Lord Nityananda Prabhu needs to come kick you in the head. You know what I was thinking? So Lord Nityananda Prabhu went all over India, all the various holy spots. And it's described at one point when he was there, because he was older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At one point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, and Lord Nityananda was able to sense that. And so Lord Nityananda Prabhu began screaming, roaring the name of Krishna. And it was reverberating throughout the whole universe. And it's described the devotees were wondering, is it thunder? What's going on? But some very enlightened devotees knew that Lord Nityananda, the Lord of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is roaring in ecstasy. So he actually went also to Rameshwar, I think it's Rameshwar, down in South India. One of the temples where Lord Shiva is worshipped, and Lord Shiva worshipped Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Lord Shiva and Parvati came as Brahmanas and actually worshipped Nityananda Prabhu, as described. And Vrindavan Das Thakur is an incarnation of Vyasa, so he can describe all of these things in great detail. Also, Lord Nityananda Prabhu met with Parshuramji. So very, very wonderful pastimes. But at a certain point, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, inspired by the Lord, came to Navadvip, and he met with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's a whole pastime in itself. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu woke up one morning, and he was saying, go find this very great devotee of the Lord has come. And I'm forgetting the devotee's house, whom Lord Nityananda Prabhu was hiding in his house. And the devotees went all around, and they couldn't find him. And they came back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I will find him. And he went into this devotee's house, and there Nityananda Prabhu was. And they immediately went into ecstasy and hugged each other, and their pastimes began. And so Lord Nityananda Prabhu is, of course, known as an avadut. And those pastimes are so far out, so amazingly transcendental. Lord Nityananda Prabhu was, many times he would take his clothes off, and Lord Chaitanya would tell him, please get dressed. And he was very much, he had a very affectionate relationship with the wife of Srivas Thakur, who was an incarnation of Rohini, and her Madhavi was her name. She was an incarnation of Rohini. So Lord Nityananda had many pastimes of that of a child and a mother with her. And so in this way, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, even though he was so, strange, he would charm the residents of Navadvip in so many wonderful ways. And there's so many pastimes that are strange, but we are charmed by them. Especially there's one I like in which Lord Nityananda Prabhu came to the house of Sachi Devi, and he had taken his clothes off. And Lord Chaitanya was saying, put on some clothes, please. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu said, dress me. So then eventually it had been settled. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he was very hungry a lot. So he was very hungry. And so then Sachi Devi had given Lord Nityananda some milk cakes. I don't know, if you go to India, there's a special sweet called a milk cake. It's very, very good. So Lord Nityananda Prabhu had these milk cakes, but then he started throwing them. He started throwing the milk cakes, and then he said, I'm hungry. And, Sachi Devi was like, I gave you all I had. I made you milk cakes, and you threw them. And then all of a sudden, all this other prasad just manifested on the table. Those are so very strange pastimes of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. But the significant, point is that at a certain point amongst these wonderful pastimes, Lord Nityananda Prabhu became the general in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu began to take the lead in the going out every day and telling people, chant Hare Krishna. In the words of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhajo Krishna, Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shiksha. Worship Krishna. Listen to Krishna's instructions. Follow Krishna. So in this way, Lord Nityananda Prabhu would go. And of course, the famous pastime of him and Haridas Thakur going out. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu, at one point, he was feeling his immense compassion for the world. And he was noticing that these great thieves, Jagai and Madai, he noticed them, thinking, if I can deliver Madai, the whole world can be delivered. Because no one is more sinful than Madai. Lord Nityananda, thinking that, he decided he was going to deliver Madai. And Haridas Thakur was not actually for the idea. He was thinking, you're a little crazy. These guys are very dangerous. And so Madai, Lord Nityananda Prabhu approached them and said, my dear sirs, please chant Hare Krishna. They became offended and chased them. Lord Nityananda Prabhu didn't give up. So at a certain point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had heard. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't really say much of it because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would actually avoid Jagai and Madhya when he would see them, being a proper Brahmana. But Nityananda Prabhu became aware that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will deliver them. And so it's described that on the day of the incident, the famous incident with the pot, the Sankirtan party was going out and the chanting was very ecstatic, and all the devotees were chanting in what's described as celestial bliss. And Nityananda Prabhu remained silent because he was so internally satisfied that he knew that Jagai and Madhya were going to be delivered that day. And so then the famous pastime happened, wherein the pot was thrown. Who threw the pot? Which one? Madhya. How do we know? How do we know it's Madhya? Because he's the mad one. And that's why it's Madhya. You can always remember that way. So Madhya threw the pot and hit Lord Nityananda Prabhu in the head. And of course, the Lord had found out, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found out and came to the scene being very furious. He summoned his Sudarshan chakra to kill Madhya. But Lord Chaitanya became aware that Jagai had actually tried to chill out Madhya. And so Lord Chaitanya became compassionate to Jagai and then embraced Jagai. And then Jagai went into an ecstasy and immediately was purified. But Madhya was not going to get the same treatment. Lord Nityananda Prabhu said, well, you can get the mercy of Nitai, and I will give you mercy. And so even though Nitai was, abused by Madhya, nevertheless, he got the mercy of Nitai, and they were delivered. And so there's so much to say, about this pastime, that we need Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, because we're all Jagais and Madhais. We've all offended the Lord and his devotees. We've been offensive, so much so in our lives, in our past lives. And so therefore the mercy of the Lord is so important to get in the form of Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. So we can't get Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. We need this mercy because we're all Jagais and Madhais. So it's described that we can't get Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy without Nitai's mercy. But how do we get Nitai's mercy? We have to go save the Jagais and Madhais. And this is the real point here, that if you go and make some decision in your life that I will go and save some Jagais and Madhais, including myself, by following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, then you'll get so much mercy. This is the way in which we get mercy. So Nitai in this way delivered everybody. And so there's no offense too big for Nitai to handle. He will save us. So we should take shelter of Nitai in that way. And time goes on. There's so many beautiful pastimes that take place, and we have no time to speak of all of them. But I'll bring some favorites to mind. One favorite is that when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, Nityananda Prabhu told Lord Chaitanya, okay, we will go to Vrindavan. We spoke of this last week. But Lord Chaitanya was telling Nityananda Prabhu, or Nityananda Prabhu was telling Lord Chaitanya, we're in Vrindavan. And Chaitanya Prabhu was next thinking he's in Vrindavan, and then all of a sudden Advaita Acharya shows up on a boat. And Nityananda Prabhu Chaitanya Prabhu goes, wait a minute, what are you doing here? He says, you tricked me. And so it's described that Nityananda Prabhu, being an avidut, he was actually very unhappy when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, because he thought sannyas was below the Lord. And it is. The Lord is beyond all type of varnashram dharma. And so Nityananda Prabhu, knowing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's position, was very unhappy with the fact that the Lord took sannyas. So one of the beautiful things about the CC, and I think it's why all devotees should read the CC a lot. I mean, there was like a whole year where I just listened to CC. That's all I did, was just listen to CC. It's just so amazing. Then I can't get that particular audiobook anymore, unfortunately. But one thing that we can really derive from the Chaitanya Charitamrita is that these beings are personal. And Prabhupada says in the purport to Bhagavad Gita 7:19 that the living entity, when he first comes to spirituality, has a tendency toward impersonalism. And so it's hard to overcome. My Guru Maharaj always says we're recovering impersonalists. Meaning that we may think, oh yeah, I'm a personalist, I love Krishna, but we don't necessarily treat each other or honor each other, and honor especially our seniors in a personal way. But when you really get into Chaitanya Charitamrita, you see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is a person who has feelings. He's God, but he actually has feelings. And there are things that please him, there are things that annoy him, There are moods he has. And so if we can accept and honor that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes through these things, we can accept and honor that all of the devotees go through these things, including our gurus, senior devotees. And in this way, we learn by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita how we should conduct ourselves as Vaishnavas. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was becoming very frustrated with his associates because he's trying to be a sannyasi and they're constantly feeding him all this nice prasadam. And so at a certain point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went off and he said, okay, I'm going to give you my two objects. I own two things. I own a danda and I own a kamandalu, water pot. And so he gave Nityananda Prabhu the danda. And Nityananda Prabhu broke the danda. And so then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes back and he said, what happened to my danda? Nityananda Prabhu says, I don't know. I don't know what happened. There's a pastime. Also, Jagadananda Pandit was involved in the pastimes. I'm kind of forgetting a certain detail because Jagadananda Pandit was there. And it's kind of told slightly differently in the CC and the Chaitanya Bhagavat. But the point was in the CC, Lord Chaitanya, he became angry. I have one object and you broke it. And so then Lord Nityananda Prabhu decided he would leave his associates. He was angry and he left and went ahead to Jagannath Puri while his associates came later. So there's a lot of philosophy behind why Lord Nityananda Prabhu broke the danda. One reason was because he felt, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was beyond this kind of sannyas, these kind of symbols. So there's so many pastimes in Nitai, and we can't describe them all. So I'm just going to give two more pastimes I really enjoy. One is that, of course, Nityananda Prabhu, he was inseparable from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But at a certain point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Nityananda Prabhu, don't come to Puri anymore. I want you to preach, which is also a big important message we can, learn. We go to the Holy Dham, or we can sit in the temple all day and think I'm advancing Krishna consciousness. But Lord Chaitanya told his dearest associate, go preach. This is the most important thing, is to preach. If we make sacrifice to preach, then we get mercy. And so Nityananda Prabhu, he left Jagannath Puri to go to West Bengal. And he took a certain amount of associates with him. And all of his associates were in the mood of cowherd boys. And they were in so much ecstasy that it took them many years to get back to West Bengal. Because they would be chanting, they'd be so absorbed in their Sankirtan that they would go and they would say, where are we? And then they would start laughing and they'd say, ask this guy where we go. And they said, go that way 20 miles. And they would go 40 miles. And they'd say, wait a minute, where are we? And they'd say, well, you have to go back 20 miles. And they would go, and it's described that the associates of Nityananda Prabhu, they'd become so powerful that at times they would be like in this ecstasy, and then a man would pull out a full tree, like a weed. He'd pull out trees. They were pulling out trees, and they were climbing trees, and they were jumping from treetops, chanting and dancing in ecstasy. And there was no sense of any consciousness. They weren't, or any mundane content. They were so absorbed in Krishna Lila. And at a certain point, some children became affectionate toward Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu became very affectionate to these children. And they came on Sankirtan, and they didn't eat for 40 days. It was described that these little boys were pulling out full entire trees because they were blessed by Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu took care of them. And at this time, sometimes he would chastise them. Sometimes he would really beat them. Sometimes he would love them. Sometimes he would personally have them sit on his lap and he would feed them food. So in this way, Nityananda Prabhu beautifully exhibited just immense love for God. And he would go into villages, and his beautiful glance would turn everybody into a pure devotee. He would just come into a village and it would turn into a pure devotee. And sometimes we think that this is reserved for Nityananda Prabhu, but there are great devotees in this movement who have exhibited pastimes like this, associates of Nityananda Prabhu. And I can think of at least two devotees whom did things like this. One of them is His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, whom when he went to Africa, he would, these are African villages, and it's described he would begin a Sankirtan. He would go out on Harinam, and they would go through an African village, and he was so beautiful and effulgent, his chanting was so powerful, the entire village would come out and join the Sankirtan party and become devotees. Some of them would. So, and also His Holiness Indrajumna Maharaj, when he was preaching following the Soviet Union, they would go at places and people would see them, and they were so powerful because of their surrender to Krishna consciousness, their surrender to serving Krishna. There's one pastime, and if you ever get a chance to read the Diary of a Traveling Preacher, it's just full of miracle after miracle after miracle, wherein you see how these devotees, and any devotee who is dedicated in this way to serving Krishna, Lord Nityananda Prabhu is in their heart, and he's exhibiting these pastimes through his own devotees. What to speak of our Srila Prabhupada, who changed the whole world to devotees. But Nityananda Prabhu, Indradyumna Maharaj, there's one pastime where they were going, and they were very beautiful, and so someone invited them to a wedding, and they ended up at this Muslim wedding, and then all the Muslims started chanting Hare Krishna, and they would go from villages. Actually, in Russia, he would go into towns in Russia, and the whole town would become devotees. The whole town would come together in the city hall, and he would preach to them, and they'd become devotees. So it's very miraculous when one actually gets the mercy of Nitai, and so we need to beg that mercy of Nitai. So in this way, there's an amazing, you can read it in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Glories of Nityananda Prabhu, one chapter where it describes in detail this journey from West Bengal back to Puri and all the amazing things that happened. And all the cowherd boys and all of his associates, they were just tripping. It was just, they would go 40 miles and they would think, wait, we went the wrong way. And they would just start giggling. And they would go back the other way, another 40 miles the wrong way. It was just giggle fest. They were giggling and jumping from trees and pulling out. It was just really amazing. And so then later on, Lord Nityananda Prabhu came to West Bengal, came back to Mayapur, and he was thinking, I think I need to dress nicely. I want to wear jewels. And so then it's described all the people, just by his thought, people were manifesting and giving him beautiful jewelry. And he wore a beautiful silk turban with golden earrings and pearls on the end of it. And there were different colors of silks and beautiful golden things. He had beautiful golden necklaces and rubies, and he had 2 beautiful Rudrak beads to honor Lord Shiva. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he was so beautiful. And at a certain point, a Brahmana thief, very sinful thief, who was born in a Brahmana family, he thought, let me rob this avadut, because his avadut is obviously very rich with these beautiful ornaments, so we will rob him. And so they were very big devotees of the goddess Chandi, Kali. And so one night they said, okay, he's staying at this Brahmana's house, we're going to go rob him. And so the night came, and then they all got tired and they fell asleep, and they woke up and they said, you're the one who fell asleep first. And it's as if you didn't fall asleep also. And so they got in an argument. Then the Brahmana said, it's useless. This Brahmana was not a normal, just like a sinful thief. He was a murderer. He used to murder people without thinking about it, just killing people left and right. And so he said, it doesn't matter. We fell asleep because we did not worship Chandi properly. So tonight we will do a big puja to Kali Devi, where we will bring here much meat and wine. And so they did. They offered meat and wine to Kali, and they sharpened their swords and their weapons, and they approached the house of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And it's described that outside there were massive guards with arms like that of pythons, chanting Hare Krishna very fanatically. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare. And they were really scared. These guys are really tough. And these guys were massive. And it's described that they were beautiful. These guys were beautiful, effulgent Vaikuntha guards. And they said, what is this avadut? And they were all kind of speculating about what this could be. And then finally the Brahmin said, no, I know what it is. It's this avadut is very famous. And one great religious king has come to see the avadut. And his guards are religious fanatics, and therefore they're out there. We must wait until these guards have gone, and then we will rob Nityananda Prabhu. And so they went back. And then the third attempt came. And as they were going, Lord Indra, with great pleasure, it's described, he manifested a storm like no other storm ever seen. And the storm was so bad it blinded all these thieves, and some of them fell in the trash. And we might not understand what that means, but when you go to India, you'll understand what it means. Like oceans of trash, rivers of trash. And so some of them fell, and like you hear about in the fifth canto. There's one place in Mayapur where you hear about the fifth canto. It talks about the river of like stool and semen and blood, and it's just this horrendous. And there's a place in Mayapur where I'm like, that is the river. I'm positive that is manifestation. It is so bad you can't even like turn away, and it's just like flowing like sludge really slowly, and just really disgusting place. And so one of them fell into that. And this is right. One of them, in the blindness, walked into a thorn bush, and they were totally entangled. Some of them, they were all being attacked by massive mosquitoes, and scorpions were biting them. And so in this way, actually one of them lost their vision completely, went blind. And so at a certain point, the Brahmana realized, this is not a normal person. This is God. I'm messing with God. And so then he came and he surrendered to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and he became a pure devotee. So there are unlimited pastimes to speak about in terms of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. We're all feeling so blissful just speaking of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. I'm feeling very happy for the opportunity to tell these stories. And so there's unlimited stories we can read, Chaitanya Bhagavat, and they are so beautiful to hear and to uplift us. So we can't tell them all, but one thing we can do is we can always pray to Lord Nityananda Prabhu to give us his mercy. And I've thought very deeply about this at different times, that God, we hear about these 5 rasas and the primary rasas and these high levels of love for God, but for us conditioned souls, the first manifestation of love of God that we can perceive is Nityananda Prabhu in the form of the devotees, in the form of the spiritual master. And this is true in the Christian tradition also. Jesus said, go and sin no more. You're forgiven. And Nityananda Prabhu said the very same thing to Jagai Madai. Go and sin no more. So we've all had that opportunity. Well, hopefully we've had that moment where we realize we can't do it on our own. We are unable to do this spiritual thing on our own, to make any progress in life. And it's a special mercy to go through that and realize that by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, the mercy of the Guru, the mercy of our initiation, which is all being empowered by Nityananda Prabhu, we have this opportunity to go and sin no more, that we are free from our reactions by surrendering to Krishna. And so we surrender to Krishna and we stop doing the nonsense. And our lives will change and we'll get better, and God will still love us. And so that mercy of Nitai is there. So we should be grateful for that. And we should pray to Nitai that we always have that opportunity to just stop. We can always stop. We can always turn around, and Nitai will accept us. And so we should just pray for his mercy on this day. And especially Nitai loves when you pray to him in the mood of a servant of Lord Chaitanya. He loves to be considered a servant of Lord Chaitanya. So pray to Nitai in that way. Beg for his mercy, and to beg for his mercy, especially to be able to be engaged in that mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's engaging the whole world in that mission. So if we can take a small part and engage in that mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then we'll get so much mercy from Nityananda Prabhu. And all it takes is a glance. It's like Narottam Das says, what is it? Ha ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi. So, oh my dear Nitai, I am so unhappy, but you are so happy. Please give me a merciful glance so that I can also become happy. So we pray like that. Thank you very much. Quick questions and comments.
Thank you for this little class. Just a couple quick things, if I may. I was listening to a talk this morning, and I heard that there was a time where they were worshiping Vyasadeva deity, it said, and Srivas Thakur is asking Lord Nityananda, please garland the deity, and Nityananda Prabhu says, yes, yes, and he doesn't do it. And then he says, please garland the deity, and he says, yes, yes, and he doesn't do it. He asks him a third time, doesn't do it. So he asks Mahaprabhu to go ask Nityananda Prabhu, and Mahaprabhu goes over there, and Nityananda Prabhu puts the garland on Mahaprabhu. Haribol. And I don't know if he faints or not. It seems like they're always fainting.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what we talk about.
And then another one was that, let's see. It's I don't remember the context of the story, but the intimacy is amazing. Apparently, Lord Nityananda, he goes and sits on Lord Chaitanya's lap, and they were noting that usually Krishna is sitting on Ananta Shesh, and Ananta Shesh this time is sitting on Krishna's lap. And then thirdly, I was thinking about the danda, and it was said that when Lord Nityananda broke it, that he spoke to the danda, and he said, "You are making my Lord carry you, and I am carrying this same Lord in my heart." So and then broke the danda, and then it was described, I guess, was it like a Mayavadi danda because of the sampradaya he took in, and he made it from that into a tree danda.
Yeah, that's one of the philosophical points they're made. Yeah. So beautiful. Anything else? Parme Prabhu, you have any nectar to share for us? We know you're an associate of Nityananda Prabhu, so we can't deny it. We know you're an associate of Nityananda Prabhu.
Yes, Lord Nityananda, he said, Lord Chaitanya says, in one of the books, I forgot which one, asked Nityananda, why, where's my danda? He said, how did it break? Well, you fell in Nityananda who tells Chaitanya, you fell in ecstasy and you fell on it, and we fell on it together and we broke it. It broke. So also with these sweet cakes with Mother Malini or Satya, I can't remember, and he throws them all around. He goes, "Well, why did you throw these sweet cakes? Well, why?" And then Nityananda says, "Well, why do you keep them in one place?" I like that kind of thing.
Okay, Nityananda Ram Prabhu, okay.
I was listening to that past time yesterday with the